This is in continuation of my previous lecture on Jane Eyre, in which I dealt with the life and literary career of Charlotte Bronte and outlined the plot of Jane Eyre. In this section, I shall deal with some of the autobiographical elements of the novel, Jane Eyre as bildungsroman, Jane Eyre as psychological and Gothic novel, and analyze some of the major characters of the novel. Now, Jane Eyre as bildungsroman. You have already learned about bildungsroman in David Copperfield. You are all well acquainted with the fact that it is a literary genre that focuses on the psychological and moral growth of the protagonist from youth to adulthood, in which character change is extremely important. Jane Eyre is primarily a bildungsroman. Jane Eyre, a seemingly plain girl, meets a lot of challenges in life and endures a lot of sufferings. The novel presents Jane's life from childhood to adulthood. The novel follows the story of Jane as she battles through life's struggles. She faces many obstacles in her life: her cruel, abusive Aunt Reed, the grim conditions at Lowood School, her love for Rochester, and Rochester's marriage to Bertha. However, Jane overcomes these obstacles through her determination, sharp wit, and courage. The novel ends with Jane's marriage to Rochester. Now, some of the autobiographical elements in Jane Eyre. In Jane Eyre, Charlotte Bronte put much of herself into the creation of the story, and in many ways, Jane resembles her creator. Jane is physically small and plain-looking woman like Charlotte. Charlotte and her sisters went to a school at Cogan Bridge run by a headmaster as severe as Mr. Brocklehurst. Jane's experiences at the school, where her dearest friend Helen Burns dies of tuberculosis, is reminiscent of Charlotte losing her two elder sisters in the same manner. John Reed in the novel is modelled on the character of Bronte's brother Branwell, who later became an alcoholic. Jane takes up the role of a governess as she herself did, and through this Bronte expresses the dissatisfaction she felt in the dull and humiliating, oppressive social conditions of the 19th century Victorian society. Jane Eyre as a Gothic novel. The plot of Jane Eyre includes most of the elements of Gothic novels. Lowood, Moor House, and Thornfield are all remote locations, and Thornfield, like Gateshead, is also an ancient manor house. Both Rochester and Jane possess complicated family histories. Rochester's first wife, Bertha, is the dark secret at the novel's core. The mystery surrounding her is the main source of the novel's suspense. Other Gothic occurrences include Jane's encounter with the ghost of her late Uncle Reed in the Red Room, the moment of supernatural communication between Jane and Rochester when she hears his voice calling her across the misty heath from miles and miles away, and Jane's mistaking of Rochester's dog, Pilot, for a guide trash, a spirit of North England that manifests itself as a horse or dog. Although Bronte's use of Gothic elements heightens her reader's interest and adds to the emotional and philosophical tensions of the book, most of the seemingly supernatural occurrences are actually explained as the story progresses. It seems that many of the Gothic elements serve to anticipate and elevate the importance of the plot's turning point. Now, the next topic is Jane Eyre as a psychological novel. In large measure, Jane Eyre is a psychological novel. It is the story of a woman's mind and of her responses to the challenges of existence. The sincerity and integrity with which Jane meets the demands of life form the core of the novel. Jane herself is the theme of the book. Now, the characters in the novel. Jane Eyre. Of all the characters in the novel, no other character is better drawn than Jane herself. It is through her eyes that the readers get to see the entire stream of events. In characterization of her heroine, Charlotte Bronte departed from convention. In Jane Eyre, she created an entirely new kind of heroine who has practically nothing in common with the customary young ladies of earlier fictions. She is not a young, beautiful girl with very fair complexion, blonde hair, and an empty head. From the beginning till the end, she is a plain girl with a clear idea of her own worth. She does not chatter, but is serious, capable, calculating, and intelligent. She possesses dignity, a startling simplicity, frankness, and considerable charm combined with wit and courage. Right from childhood, she is straightforward, says little, and her conversation is to the point. She retains the coolest kind of objectivity in circumstances of stress. Moral integrity is one of the marks of her character. She refuses the extravagant rich gifts Rochester wants to bestow on her. Jane's independence and ability to make decisions for herself is one of her strong traits, and also projects the status of women in the Victorian era. Under the garb of a Victorian governess, she is intensely passionate and her love is profound. Mr. Edward Rochester. Just as Charlotte departed from convention in the characterization of Jane, so in delineation of Mr. Rochester's character, she moves away from the stock romantic hero. He bears no resemblance to them, in spite of his dashing Byronic good looks. Jane, who narrates the story, bluntly states that Rochester is ugly. He is more than 20 years older than she, a man with an irregular past and hardly a suitable mate for a proper Victorian lady. In drawing this remarkable but unconventional hero, Charlotte went beyond all previous novelists and invented a new type of romantic hero. He is a man who has sinned and been sinned against. Despite his lack of physical beauty, he possesses a masculine attractiveness and a fine intellect. The secondary characters are also sketched skillfully by the novelist. Mrs. Reed is clearly portrayed as a self-righteous, domineering woman, blind to the faults of her own children, but quick to reprimand and chastise Jane. Mr. Brocklehurst, the clergyman, director and treasurer of Lowood School, whose maltreatment of the students is eventually exposed, is hypocritical. Adele is a gay and charming child, while Mrs. Fairfax is sweet and kind but dull. The character gallery would be incomplete if the lovely, intelligent Rivers sisters are left out, or if one overlooks John Rivers, the dedicated, noble and unfeeling man. This is the end of the lecture session on Jane Eyre. Thank you and have a nice day.